Okay. Okay. So here we are, the product of our own actions. Everything that we've experienced, everything we are, how people see us, what happens to us, our tendencies, our personality. We're the creators of this. So there's no karma that, there's no action, there's no intention, action, karma, that can't change. So if we're the result of what we've done, what we do will be what we will be in the future. It's up to us. It's not random. It's not up to anyone else. I mean, it's up, conditions, all the many other factors in life play roles, but our own mind, our intention, our actions play the central role. So basically it's up to us. So the basis of this idea of karma, using it as your basic philosophy of life, using it as your way of living life, is simple morality. You want happiness and don't want suffering. Got a real vivid awareness of that. I want happiness, then I better create the causes. Don't want suffering, I better quit creating the causes. There's a real sense of being in charge of it. Not being a victim of it, not being a victim of circumstances, not just whatever happens, who knows, it's not up to me. How do I know what's going on? Not like that. So if my mind is beginningless, there have to be countless seeds planted on my mind from countless thoughts, countless actions of body and speech, in countless past lives. And if I don't want, and if I want happiness, then I need to make sure that the seeds on my mind are appropriate seeds, the virtuous seeds, and that I remove the negative seeds. That's it. Practical issue. So if karma is a mental thing, is a psychological activity, and then changing it is a psychological activity. You know, the term they use is purification. Purification. So it's one of the major parts of one's practice, you know. Your day-to-day life is on the basis of knowing your mind well, observing your actions, observing the mind, action, you know, acting appropriately. Creating as much, you know, putting positive seeds in the mind, doing virtuous actions, and then avoiding negative. That's one thing. And then pulling out the seeds is the other. So in relation to the two causes of suffering in the Second Noble Truth, karma and delusions, then in relation to each, there's a level of practice. So the most immediate, most urgent level of practice, as Lama Zopa puts it, is related to karma, is related to the delusions. So as each thing happens to us in our life, the more and more you use the view of karma as your interpretation of that thing, of why it's happening and what it is, then the more on the alert you are to respond appropriately. So, you know, Jason comes and punches me based upon the philosophy that I'm an innocent victim. I didn't ask to get born. It's not my fault. I've never met this person, and how dare he? It's, you know, I don't deserve it. Then anger arises, and then I punch him back. And that just keeps the whole ball rolling. So on the basis of having the view of karma, the response to life is the one of knowing it's everything. As Lama Zopa puts it, everything is our own karmic appearance. Whatever it is we meet, who we meet, how they see us, what they do, the experiences we have, all of this is kind of like an echo in the sense that it's our own stuff coming back. It's a very interesting way to see life, you know. It's yours. Yours, you know. You created it. It's coming back to you, good or bad. And so the most urgent level of practice in relation to delusions is to not respond negatively. The most minimum level, when Jason punches, sure, get the hell out of the crazy guy's way. He's a maniac. Don't just sit there and go, oh, it's karma, you know. Please, excuse me. If you can ask him to stop, please do it. If you can get out of his way, please do it. Be practical, be reasonable. But if you can't, if the karma ripens, you know, using the analogy of seeds and fruits, then at least the minimum level of response is to not punch back. With your body and speech, try to behave appropriately, and then with your mind, interpret it in such a way that it doesn't pollute your own mind again. Meanwhile, getting out of his way, if you can. If you can't, which is very common, things happen, we don't expect it. You're hanging around, you know, having fun, and suddenly something happens. You don't expect it, you can't see it coming. This is so common. It's like you didn't know there was a seed you planted when you're talking to that person, and all of a sudden they harm you. No expectation. You didn't know, you couldn't see it coming. This is so common in our lives. We don't get warning, you know, like someone knocks on the door, you're going to get killed tomorrow, be ready. You're going to get raped tomorrow, you know, win the lottery tomorrow. No, things happen, we don't see it coming so often. So working on your mind, you know, taking this view of karma, doing your daily practice, doing your meditation, seeing your mind more clearly, being your own therapist, more and more using the view of karma as the way you interpret what's in front of you. And let's face it, we're always interpreting. I think we're very blind to this. We don't notice. We don't even think we have a philosophy of life. We just think we're floating along life and stuff happens, you know. But all the time our minds are interpreting. We have very, very detailed philosophies. Every single one of us in this room has a very detailed philosophy, a very detailed view of the world. And every second things happen, we interpret according to that view. And this is what we have to investigate. So what Buddha's saying is mostly it's the view of ego, it's the samsaric philosophy, the view of the victim. I didn't ask to get born, it's not my fault, things are random, I don't know why things happen, I don't deserve it. The view of the delusions, you know, this is what's running the show most of the time. So when the people punch or something goes wrong, we have fear, we have panic, we have anger, we have resentment, we get jealous, all the usual nonsense, you know, running through our heads. This is our philosophy. This is samsaric philosophy. We're kind of brainwashed ourselves from our own past practice with this. So much of your daily practice is, you know, as a Buddhist, is listening to it, thinking about it, and then kind of re-brainwashing yourself, if you like, washing your brain of all the rubbish. Of course, this is if one chooses. You know, in my case, I've chosen to live this life, chosen to use this view as the way I live my life, chosen to use this to interpret my experiences. That's my call. That's our call, every one of us. But this is how you're actively working every day on your mind, you know. So when the bad things happen, you at least control yourself and don't respond badly back. And that's in that way you finish that karma and then reinterpret it in such a way you don't make more of the same nonsense. That's the first level of practice. Control, you know, protect your own body and speech. At least this, in order to protect your mind. At least don't create more. Then the second level, in relation to karma, is to pull out the seeds we've already planted, the negative ones, before they ripen as suffering. That's really reasonable. This is really the basis of one's daily practice. Learning slowly to control yourself in relation to what goes on in life, becoming more and more brave, more and more courageous, more and more confident, better and better at it, like we do. The more you do something, you get better at it. Reinterpreting what goes on. And this is very much what causes one's mind to become more happy. What causes one's mind to become unhappy every day, is thinking it's not fair, I'm just a victim, why does this happen, don't know why, how dare. This brings the fears, the panic, the worries. You know, every day something comes. We never know what it is. No wonder we all have fear and panic. So having the view of karma, you learn to engage more in life, be confronting things when they happen, interpret it, change the view of Jason, forgive Jason for punching you because you know why he punched you, like those two nuns having compassion for their torturers. Listen, you could have given them a key, they would have run out of that prison any day they want. But given that they couldn't run out of the prison, they worked on their minds, they reinterpreted. They interpreted, according to the view of karma and compassion and so on, that scenario. So guess what? They came out of that prison, out of that torture, happier and wiser human beings. Not complete having mental breakdowns, which is the usual way we think you would be if you're being tortured, you know, and suffering. So in relation to delusions, you learn to control your body and speech to respond appropriately to whatever arises, and then slowly learn to reinterpret in your mind. And then in relation to karma, you know, one of your daily practices that we do in the evening every day, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. We mightn't get to do it, but talking about it's enough, good enough. We can then go through it. But going through it is like doing it already. You know, every evening you finish the day with this practice. As Lama Zopa says, we are insane not to do this practice every day, this one of purification. And it's basically working on your mind, like all of it. It's working on your mind. It's nothing holy, you know. So slowly, as we'll get into the course more, how many days have we had? This is our first day, isn't it? Is it our first day? It feels like about a week already, doesn't it? It's true, doesn't it? It's amazing. There's an advantage in talking fast sometimes. No, really, later, darling, truly. Just kind of let it process, let it sit there, and we'll go through things. Best not, if you don't mind. We'll try and keep it for tomorrow. That's the best way. Make notes and things, you know. But all the answers come too. You know, if any system that's kind of coherent, you know, slowly you piece it together and the answers come. But we can have this tomorrow. So this practice, it's basically a psychological process. It's your mind engaging. Okay, as we're going to go along in the course, I'm going to bring in the stuff that looks religious, like all the Buddhas and the deities and the mantras and the prayers, the stuff that thinks is classic religion, to try and show how it is also just psychology. It is not anything different. And keep remembering the Buddhist approach, no matter what the practice is, it is something that is psychological. It is to do with your mind. If it isn't, then it's a waste of time. There's no benefit to it. It's meaningless. Chuck it in the bin. I'm serious. All the stuff that looks religious, like prostrations and mantras, all the stuff that seems completely like it's not psychological, that it's religion, you know. It's all psychological. If it isn't, it's useless. If it isn't a method that you use that will help you change your mind, it is a waste of time. That's a fact. And so this particular practice we're going to do, it's got 4 steps. This is often called, as a friend of mine calls it, the 4 R's. The 4 R's. I've been living in America for quite a while. I've got to speak like an American sometimes. If I say the 4 R's, Australians understand me, but no one else. Or I'd say karma. What? I have to go karma, you know. Or I'd say, can I have some hot water, please? They say, what? And then I've got to stop. I've got to go, hot water, hot water, hot water. Is that okay? Hot water. Or if I want butter on my bread, I beg your pardon, butter. Anyway, so, okay, yeah, here we go. So these 4 steps, the 4 R's, the 4 R's. And there's many terms you can use, but it's handy to remember, that's all. So this is all in your book, by the way. It's all in your notes. It's called, it's in the back part, the last, probably one of the last practices, the purification practice. It's all there. What I'm going to do tonight is all there. All the stuff I've talked about so far is all in your notes. So the 4 R's are regret. Get your page if you want to have a look there. Have a look. Purification. Can you see it there? Okay. Look in the contents, you'll see. I think it's, I forget, purification or something it's called. What's it called? At the end. What's it called, people? What page is it on? 61, okay. Okay, as you can see there. Have you got it, Jason? What's wrong? You got it? 61, honey. Have you got 61 there? Okay, fine. So the 4 R's, as you can see, are, first is regret. The second one is reliance. The third one is the remedy. And the fourth one is resolve. And now we can go through them. I'll try and explain, okay? So this first one, regret, is a really important one. Let's unpack that one. It's a very common English word. Oh, I regret what I did, you know? But let's look at carefully exactly what it means here. Okay, so one time somebody asked the Dalai Lama, what's the difference between regret, this one that we're discussing, and what we call guilt? And it was very sweet, but quite clear how he described the difference. So he said, guilt is you look in the past and you say, I did that, and I did this, and I did that, and then you say, and I'm a bad person. That whole one, you know. Regret, he said, you look in the past, you say, I did this, I did that, I did this, but then you say, what can I do about it? How can I change? So this is a huge difference. The guilt we know really well. And this is one of the voices of ego. It's the self-pity. It's the one that's absorbed in the self. It's like anger, but instead of out there, it's in here. Guilt is self-blame. Anger is blaming another. The state of mind is identical. Anger, aversion. The object in guilt is oneself. And it's just like blame, anger. I remember Martin Luther King saying, it's okay to be angry. In other words, it's okay to find fault. You did this, and you did that, and you did this. But then he said, just the same, but then you say, what can I do about it? And that is what makes the world of difference. So in relation to owning responsibility for our own negative actions, which is what this first step is all about, what the entire purification process is all about, it's absolutely crucial. If you can't own the fact that you did this and said that, and kicked the dog at 1 o'clock, and killed your mother at 2 o'clock, and stole the money at 3 o'clock, and got angry at 4 o'clock, if you can't own the fact that you did that, then how can you change? Impossible. So the usual ways we have now, the usual ways we deal with the bad things that we do now are, we either blame someone else, but it's his fault. What do you mean I should change? We blame ourselves, which is guilt, and that just means you stay stuck in it, and you hate yourself even more, and you get worse and worse, and then you finally kill yourself, because you can go nowhere with guilt. Guilt, this kind of paralyzing self-loathing that sees it as permanent, and therefore I'm bad. This is a disastrous state of mind. It's the one we are so familiar with. Or the third one is we live in denial. So let's use an analogy, you know, again, an ordinary example of daily life that we really do, where we understand this process very well. Let's say you just ate some poison in your dinner. Now, and someone points it out. How absurd would it be for you to go, who put poison in my dinner? Meanwhile, you're getting sicker and sicker, and all you care about is who did it, and you're going to blame somebody. Not much help, right? How ridiculous to go, oh my God, I'm a bad person, I ate poison, and you're getting worse and worse. Oh, I'm such a bad person, I ate poison. How absurd, how useless. And even more absurd, what do you mean, I did not eat poison? You understand my point? These are our 3 modes of living life: blame, guilt, and denial. They're all useless. They're all paralyzed. They're all based on ego. They're based on fear, and they are not helpful. So the poison example is really simple. We understand there are consequences to me if I eat poison. We get that really clearly. But because we don't get the idea there are consequences to me if I've done something bad, you know, talking morality. Well, we do if we think God's going to punish us. And I'm not complaining about that one. I think nothing wrong with that. You know, if that's the basis of your confessing and then you go to confession like a Catholic and then you know, it's nothing wrong. But it's just not the view here, that's all. It's a very different view. So you've got to own responsibility for the fact that you did something that, and this is why this first level of practice, as we talked already, the one of karma, the reason not to want to harm others at the first level is to protect yourself. And so regret, this first step of the purification practice, is based upon that one. It's the first level. It's the reason to regret the fact that I was angry with Jason. The reason I regret harming that person, the reason I regret doing whatever I did to harm another with my body or my speech, which is the first stuff to regret. And we all do something. We mightn't be Hitler. We all do something. We badmouth people. We have fights. We talk behind backs, you know, or even our ordinary daily stuff. The reason at this first step to regret, to own the fact that I did it, is because I know that it's leaving the imprint in my mind, like the poison, and I don't want the consequences. We've got to get this one. And this is the basis of regret. And it's like self-respect. It's not guilt. It's not kind of, I'm a bad person. It's practical. It's a practical issue, which takes time to cultivate. That's not an attitude we have now, to regret that we're angry for our own sake. It sounds so peculiar. We mostly regret we're angry because we think our friend will reject us. It's ego, you know. It's very spontaneous, very deep inside us. We don't want to be rejected by our friends, so we go and ask them to forgive us, and we hope they do. Because it's so painful for us, you know. So this is where we have to be very clear about the process of purification and how it's different, let's say in my case, from the Catholic, the religious, the Christian one. For example, you know, remember what a negative action is sin is that which God says I shouldn't do. So if that's true, then I need God to forgive me. I must have God to forgive me. Absolutely, that's part of what purification is in Christianity. I presume the same in Judaism. Islam the same. You must confess and God must forgive you. And you know, you're mortified if he doesn't. So we bring that into our daily life, you know. If I've harmed my mother or harmed my boyfriend or whatever, or my somebody, and then I, you know, confess, I need them to forgive me. And this is where it's rather awful. If they don't forgive us, we feel like we might as well kill ourselves. Because we assume the only time it changes is when the other person forgives me. But the Buddhist view, forgiveness has nothing to do with it. It's very nice to be forgiven. It makes us feel a lot better. But the process of changing is an internal thing. My mother might never forgive me for the things that I've done to her, let's say. I mean, she did. She always forgave me. Let's say she doesn't. That's her problem, not being mean. But I must regret the things I've done, and I must know that I can change, and I do the whole process, go through the 4 steps. That's what purifies me. And then secondly, because Buddha is not my creator, we bring Buddha into it. We're going to come to this in a minute in the second step. But Buddha, his job is not to forgive me. Of course, he's a compassionate guy. He probably does. But that's not the discussion here. Forgiveness is not the issue. It's, if you like, it's forgiving yourself. And this is not an easy thing. I remember a friend, not a friend, the person I met years ago, New Zealand, I think. She had had an abortion because she was scared that the boyfriend would leave her if she didn't get rid of the baby. In the end, he didn't care. Anyway, she was just so broken-hearted. And she had this unbelievable guilt, like self-loathing, in such tears of distress, you know. And we talked about the purification, and she said, I'm not going to do it. I don't deserve it, she said. She kind of felt that she had to suffer. And that's a component of guilt. We think it's good to suffer. We think it's good to think I'm a bad person. We think it's not appropriate to think we can go past it. We think we have to stay with it. Somehow that's part of the punishment, you know. This is too terrible. Working with people in prison, of all the group of people on this earth, the ones who really feel they are innately bad, because they're told this, they're chucked into prison because of it. it's really quite incredible, you know. So the ones who connect with Buddhism, the ones we know who practice, this one is phenomenal. I know when I give talks, you know, and they're on the edge of their seat, they can't believe that they're not innately bad, you know. Because this is now getting to very much into the way we identify ourself as a person. It's guilt and all this are very linked to this view of self, which we're going to go into much more about emptiness, and we'll do this more tomorrow. So, you know, the way we are now is we identify myself, you know, in terms of being a bad person, by the bad things I've done. And then that's what the world does. Criminals are bad people, in their bones bad. So that's what we do to ourselves. We're innately bad, we think, you know. So there's no space there. There's nothing can change if you think this. And that's the business about karma. The Buddha's saying, it doesn't matter what you've done. Hitler 27 times worse. There's nothing in there that can't be changed. There's nothing he's done that he can't purify. Okay, you might not purify it. You might have to experience the causes because you don't pull out the seeds in time. But in theory, there's nothing stopping a person who does what he does from changing, even in that life if it had the opportunity. We're not defined in our bones by our bad actions. So owning them is a really important first step, but in this very clear way, you know. So the kind of process when you're doing this, you're just basically talking to yourself when you do this practice. You're talking through this process yourself, to yourself. And that even is something unusual. We don't like to talk to ourselves unless we criticize ourselves or we defend ourselves. It's always the voice of ego. If we listen to how we talk to ourselves, it's not in a very kind of clear, positive, upbeat way. It's usually defensive or hurt or not fair or poor me or how dare they do that to me or all the guilt and the self-criticism. It's not a very healthy relationship we have with ourselves, not at all. So this first step even here, or even the whole process, demands we're cultivating a healthy relationship with ourselves because it's you doing the practice. You talking to yourself. You changing your mind. As Lama Yeshe said, you know, we create negative karma with our mind. So we purify it with our mind. But the way we think about guilt and I'm a bad person, it's like there's this big, fat, ugly rock of badness in there. So then we think, well, what's the point of just regretting? I'm still a bad person, you know. But it's a dependent arising like everything else. That's how it can change. It's not permanent. So what purification is, as Lama Yeshe put it one time, is it's the power of each of these four steps. It's the power of your regret, the strength of your regret, the strength of your reliance, the power of the remedy, and the power of the resolve, which is the one to change. This is what purification is. It is a psychological process. It is you working on your mind. There's no magic about it. And no one purifies you but you. So to have this view, you've got to have some confidence in yourself. You've got to have some kind of wish to change, and you've got to want to change, and you've got to know that you can change. And you've got to know that it's you that does it. Don't wait for God or Buddha to do it for you, which is how we tend to think. You know. So basically when you do the first step, you regret, you'd sit down, you know, and you would think, okay, whatever you've done today, you'd go back over your day, roughly. You know, today, the things that you've done with your body and speech to harm others. It might be not much, you know. It might be some things. You killed that ant, you couldn't be bothered moving it out of the way. You know, you badmouth the person who snores in your dormitory because you can't stand her already. I mean, you understand my point. Whatever it might be. And the thing about this process is very interesting to do at the end of the day as well, because, you know, you look at an ordinary day we have, especially not necessarily here, but like when we're really busy in life, you know. So much happens, so many people you meet, so many dramas, the freeway and this and that. By the end of the day, we're exhausted. But by the end of the day, we haven't, as things happen in the day, you get annoyed, you get upset, you get jealous, you get irritated, you're depressed. So many things go on in our mind in a day, just in one little day. But we don't fully, properly process it as it's happening. And then we kind of bury it. So by the end of the day, no wonder we're exhausted. Then we go to bed, then we have all stress and we get bad dreams, we wake up, we're all worried, we have depression, and it keeps building up. So this is a really helpful practice at the end of the day to kind of unwind, unpack everything. And just notice how you're feeling a bit anxious. And then you remember that, at 10 o'clock this morning, you got angry with somebody just for a second. And you didn't fully work with it, so it stayed there and it's been sort of festering inside you. Much of what happens every day is this is how it is. We don't work with it properly. We don't process it properly. We don't kind of rid our minds of it. So just doing this practice is very helpful for this. And then as Lama Yeshe says, you go to bed with a happy mind, So this first one, regret, you just think of what you've done today with your body and speech that might have harmed others. And then you think of yesterday or the day before, or in general in this life, the stuff that we've done. Now maybe the stuff that we've regretted repeatedly, but maybe this is the first time we've done it, so we think of the things, and if we think it's appropriate, we'd regret the sentient beings we've killed. Maybe you don't think it's something to regret yet. That's cool, that's your call, Maybe you think it is something to regret. So you think of whatever you've done with your body and speech that have harmed others, that have therefore left seeds in your mind. You acknowledge these. You might remember them all, but you say them, whatever I've done, the lying, the killing, the this, the that, and you might remember some of them. And then you say to yourself, and you get, in your own words, and you learn to mean it, not just sort of like by rote. I regret these from the depths of my heart. But you've got to say why, because that gives you the reason. Because, I'm sick of suffering. I'm fed up with this ridiculous rat race. I'm sick of all the suffering and all the pain in my relationships and all the dramas I have. I'm fed up with suffering. I don't want the consequences of these actions to ripen to me because I'm sick of suffering. We have to cultivate this attitude, Mightn't seem right to us yet. Mightn't seem natural. Mightn't be appropriate. I'm just talking about if you do have this view or you'd like to cultivate this view. And then, of course, you can regret all the things you can't remember. Because just because, you don't remember when you burnt that fire burns you, it's still going to burn you because it's a natural law. So karma is a natural law. You harm sentient beings, but you don't remember. Well, then you think, and whatever I've done that I don't even remember in this entirety of this life with my body and speech to harm any sentient being, and even the things I didn't mean to do, all the ants I've killed, all the creatures, I deeply regret this. Because I don't want future suffering. I don't want that kind of suffering. So then, of course, having the view of karma and past lives, you would then, if it makes sense to you, you would say, and whatever I have done in countless past lives to harm any sentient being, I regret from the depths of my heart. Because, the logic being you've sowed those seeds, they're in there latent, waiting for the conditions to ripen. So this regret is the owning of them. I regret them from the depths of my heart because I don't want suffering, sick of suffering. So just like if you've eaten poison and you acknowledge it, oh my God, I ate poison. What's the next thing you do? Whom can I turn to? Quick, where's the doctor? And you can only do that if you own it. If you live in denial, if you blame or you're guilty, you won't think of a doctor. You just sit in your mess, So regretting kind of propels you to think, well then now, what will I do about it? What's the next step? Whom do I turn to? So this is where the Buddha comes in. We use the Buddha. There's many ways to do this practice, but this is kind of a classic way that they do in Tibetan Buddhism, by utilizing the visualization of a Buddha, particular Buddha, and saying a particular mantra. It is said by all the Tibetan Lamas to be really a very tasty practice. We can discuss these more as time goes by. So in the second step then is called reliance. To rely upon somebody. So it's got two parts. The first part is one takes refuge, as Buddhists say, in the Buddha. So it's a particular Buddha, and we won't go into all this now, we'll talk about it later, called Vajrasattva. It's a particular Buddha that's said to be a very potent practice for purification. So one would visualize, one would imagine him above the head, But what is the meaning of reliance? What's the actual mental attitude? And again, this is a really specific thing. So if I'm a Christian, then I would rely upon God as my creator, and then I would beg him to forgive me. That's the approach. But again, like I'm saying, Buddha's not a creator, so one isn't using him in that way. One is using him in this context more like a doctor, quite literally. So use the poison analogy again, okay? Let's say you haven't taken poison, but you've heard about some amazing doctor living in Tasmania or something, the other end of the earth, you know, down by the Arctic. Let's say you've heard of some amazing doctor who has every antidote to every poison. Now, you haven't taken poison, right? So you're going to be, oh, that's interesting. But then you know, oh, please give me some coffee, would you? You change the subject. Why? Because you don't care. Why? You don't need a doctor. You're very interested that he can cure every poison. Big deal. But now look how you feel when you've taken poison. Who was that doctor? Where does he live? Tasmania. I'm going. Do you understand my point? And you will hang on every word he tells you, and you will do exactly what he says, and you will be so grateful to him because he has got the medicine that you need to purify your poison. Well, that is the attitude of refuge, the Buddhist approach to the Buddha. So it's logical then that if we don't think we're suffering, then our reliance upon the Buddha it won't be very strong. I always remember Lama Yeshe saying that if Buddhists had the refuge of Muslims, we'd all be enlightened by now. The faith, you know, the devotion. So here you see, this is where, now, what does suffering mean? Go back to the first noble truth, 3 kinds of suffering. The first kind is when things go wrong. In prison, cancer, husband leaves you, something terrible has happened, you've been raped, something really serious has gone wrong. We call that the really gross level of suffering. That's the suffering of suffering. So if we have that, we can have very strong reliance upon the doctor, can't we? We all know if we're Christian or Jewish. I mean, like after the September 11, they said the churches were full for about a month, then back to normal. We always turn to God when things go wrong. But when things are floating along, ordinary life, we never think about. I'm talking ordinary religious terms now. It's the same among Buddhists, believe me. Oh yeah, I take refuge in the Buddha, blah, blah, blah. I'm a Buddhist, blah, 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 you know. But it's only when things go wrong that we get a wake-up call. It's almost like a mantra of our friends in prison. It's been my wake-up call, they say. It's been my wake-up call. And that's our trouble. We're as thick as a post. You know, we need reminding. And so the trouble, so what Buddha's asking us to do, what the whole Buddhist approach is, you learn to cultivate this attitude of renunciation yourself without waiting to get cancer or waiting for your husband to leave you. You realise already that you are suffering and you're caught up in suffering. And this gets us to the second kind of suffering, which is a more subtle level, which we are all completely drowning in, the suffering of the delusions, the suffering of attachment, the suffering of all the nonsense. That's the suffering we are very familiar with. But because we all assume it's ordinary life, we don't call it suffering. I mean, every one of you in this room recognises depression, jealousy, low self-esteem, anger, hurt, pride. This is the suffering of the second kind. But because the world calls that normal, and then because we're not poor and we're not, you know, some of us might be. We're not dying of cancer. Some of us might be. If we haven't got the first level of suffering, we tend not to think that we're suffering. So therefore we don't, if we're even being Buddhist, then one doesn't think much about relying upon the doctor, you know. So that's why we have to think about this subtler level of suffering a lot, and we'll go into this a lot more, to try and recognise that ordinary daily life, ordinary people like us with depression and fears and neurosis, that is unbearable suffering. In fact, it's the worst suffering. I can tell you about many people I know in prison who've got the garbage level of suffering, but whose minds are happy. Whose minds are happy. That means they've got less suffering, truly, not joking. It's the inner prison. It's very true. The more we see this, it's true. The inner prison. You know, many of these prisoners have written to Lama Zopa. He writes his 18-page letters back to them, and he's always on about that one, you know. The inner prison is worse than the external prison. It's easy for us to say this. It sounds almost patronising. But when we start to see our minds, we can see the truth of this. That mental suffering is far worse. When we can get in touch with this one, then we can have a strong sense of wanting to go beyond it, regretting these crazy states of mind for our own sake, because our heart breaks for ourself. So therefore, if we're, say, a Buddhist, one has a strong sense of relying upon the Buddha and his methods for one's own sake. Not because someone said you should, you know. So this first step of reliance then, in this way we do the practice, one would visualize this particular Buddha above the head, and we can talk about this in a very general way, and you take refuge, as they say. So this attitude of reliance or refuge, like in the doctor, is the recognition that you're suffering and therefore you want their medicine, you want their advice. That's what reliance or refuge means. Now, the second part of this, it sounds curious to call it reliance, but there's a particular way the Tibetans talk about it. And this second step is compassion for others. The first step is like the first level of practice, like we've been talking with karma. It's like compassion for yourself. But the second one, under the heading of reliance, is you now think about the harm you've done to others for their sake, and you regret it for their sake. And you cultivate this attitude of wanting to purify yourself for their sake, which is the cultivation of compassion, you know. So why is it called reliance? Well, there's this curious sort of way they talk about. If you think about it, what you're trying to do in this second step is yourself cultivate compassion. Cultivate this empathy with the suffering of others. And so it's obvious, isn't it, that in order to cultivate compassion, you have to think about suffering people. It's very reasonable. If there were no suffering people, you couldn't have compassion. So in that sense, you need suffering people in order to cultivate compassion. It's a curious way to put it, but you can see the logic of it. Does it make sense what I'm saying? People? Thank you very much. Sorry, you don't have to answer every time, but some things like this can sound peculiar. And so this second step is a really good one. You think of those you have harmed, you know. And if it's for this, you shift the emphasis now. So you think, and but this and this and this, and you really, even if you sort of be struggling with it, because sometimes it's a struggle, you don't have this welling up of compassion. My goodness, of course not. But you at least think the thoughts. And I deeply regret whatever I've done, because I know what it's like to suffer, so I know how they feel. And this is true. So I must purify myself for their sake. You be specific about some of the people in particular. But then too, if you can, you then think about those who have harmed you. Now, this is a tough one. If we can, amazing. And why would you have compassion for people who've harmed you? Like I said before, because they will suffer as a result of the actions they have done to you. They will suffer. This is karma. They've harmed themselves by harming you. So if we can have enough courage to do this, it doesn't mean we have to go there. You know, the first thing we must have is this strong sense of regret for oneself. And if we're not ready to have compassion for those who've harmed us, don't force it. It's foolish. You do it when you're ready, you know. There's no point in pretend. I mean, we need to pretend, but there's no point in pretending, but we're in a sense of lying to ourselves how we're feeling, you know. Oh, yes, I have compassion for the people who've harmed me, but you're still full of rage and you can't even see it. That's foolish. Move at our own pace. And of course, this compassion for those who've harmed us in this context here is completely based on the view of karma, like those two nuns, you know. We had compassion for our torturers because we knew we had harmed them in the past. That's a huge point. Maybe we're not ready to think that. Well, one step at a time, it's cool. Then the third step is where you put your money where your mouth is. You take the medicine. You do the practice. You take the remedy. So, you know, you could say there's a whole medicine cabinet of remedies, you know. There's so many things that you can do that counteract a negative action. The simplest level, let's say you're regretting killing the ants or something, let's say, or an abortion you might have had, which, you know, Buddhism would say is a sentient being. It's a sentient being from the first second it came into your womb, so it's a human being from then. So if one has an abortion, which many of us have had, I've had an abortion, you know, or we've participated in an abortion, and if you want to think about that one, that's a good one to regret, if you're ready for that, you know. And so what was I saying? I've lost my plot completely here. What was I saying? What was I talking about? Remedy. Oh, yeah, so there's a whole medicine cabinet of remedies. So the most obvious antidote to killing is to help, to save lives, isn't it? So one of the great practices, and this is a very common thing among Buddhists, is you'd go and buy a bunch of earthworms that will be used for bait, and you release them. This is so powerful. Even to save the life of one little fly that looks like it's drowning in your drink is such a special action to do. To even bother to put your hand out and save a little sentient being from harm is an incredible action. Do not underestimate it. It's so beneficial. So to go out there and help sentient beings, save the lives of sentient beings. You know, when I used to live in Hong Kong, I remember we'd go down to the port, and we'd buy all the buckets of what do you call them? Like fish, you know, the ones in the shells. What do you call them? No. Crabs, yeah. We'd buy all the crabs. And then we'd, you know, they were all strung up together. You'd release them back into the water, you know. I mean, the fishermen were happy. Got money right there for an entire bucket of crabs, you know. Actually, I remember one time in Florida, it was very funny. I went into this supermarket and I bumped into this big tank of lobsters. All these living lobsters. Of course they're living because then they get killed by put into a hot pot of water, aren't they? It's a terrible way to die. So I thought, oh my God, these poor lobsters. So I said some mantras and blew on them, and I left, and I thought, this is terrible. How can I leave them, you know? I've met these lobsters. How can I know they're going to die? How cruel of me. So I went back, and I was with a friend, and we kind of negotiated with the fish market fellow to buy the lot, you know. He was very he gave us a big discount. He was so moved he couldn't believe it. He was so moved by this crazy action. So we bought a big bucket, filled it with water, and we put all the lobsters in, but he left one. He said, oh, this guy's old. He'll die before he gets to the pot. Don't worry about him. So we left him behind. Then we weren't sure whether they were seawater or freshwater lobsters, you know, but we figured at least it's better for the poor lobster not to die in a boiling pot of water. Let it die in the seawater if it's the salt. I don't know, whatever. It seemed a little bit less harmful way to die. So we brought it down to the pier and said a few mantras on the, you know, blew on them, and then we chucked them back in the sea, you know. But I couldn't go back to that supermarket because I know I'd meet another lot of lobsters, and I'd run out of money. I'd never have enough money to meet the lobsters, you know. Anyway, to save the life of one sentient being is incredible. Amazing antidote to killing. It's obvious, it's the opposite. It's obvious that the opposite to lying is to really make the constant effort to not lie. It's sort of obvious, you know. If you're driving that way on the freeway, going off out into the wrong lane, the obvious antidote is go back into the right lane. It's nothing special, it's obvious. If you're regretting anger, you try to be patient. If you regret stealing, try to give. It develops the opposite habit in your mind. There's nothing cosmic about it. It's very reasonable. The more you practice playing piano properly, the more it purifies the habit to play it not properly. It's just sort of common sense. But this particular practice, all the lamas would say, works at a very, deep level, a kind of very potent level of practice. And we can try and talk about this, the power of mantra and why these practices are said to be so powerful, So in this next step then, the third one of you take the medicine, in this particular practice, you would then visualize, which is your mind thinking certain things. That's all. All of it is your mind gradually changing. So what you're visualizing, and there's many ways to do it, the Buddha's above your head, and you're visualizing like nectar coming, filling you completely. And there's one way we'll do it, which is in those notes, is that the first level you visualize all the nectar pouring into you, forcing out all the harm you've ever done with your body since beginningless time as like filthy liquid disappearing into space. And then the second level, while you say the mantra, the second level you visualize all the nectar coming from the Buddha above your head, filling you up and coming out and forcing up all the imprints of all the harm you've done with your speech, all coming out through your top part of your body as filthy liquid, completely disappearing into space. And the third one is where you purify all the negative states of mind, and you visualize light coming and filling you with this blissful laser light. And you say this mantra while you're doing it. So all of this is merely mental activity. It's your mind regretting, having compassion, relying upon the Buddha, imagining, visualizing, happily wanting to purify. So then we think, well, what good's that? I'm still a bad person in there, like this big ugly black person inside there, this bad person. But not true. Because every time you think differently, you're counteracting the old habits. It's a mental thing. It's how you learn to be a piano player. That's all. You change the way you think. And wanting to purify, wanting to change, imagining purifying, happily imagining completely being free of all delusions. Like this. It's practice. Well, practice is faking it till you make it, isn't it? That's what practice means. So the fourth step, the most important, this one called resolve. It's the determination to change. So here, let's say you're a Buddhist and you've taken refuge formally, and then when you do that, you take, for example, a set of the 5 layperson's vows, they call it, which is sort of a summary of those 10 non-virtues. There's just 5 of them. You vow not to kill any living being for the rest of your life, not lie, not steal, not involve in sexual misconduct, which usually simply means, if that's the way you identify it in one's culture, you don't sleep around with other people's partners, cheat on yours. And the 5th one is no drugs or alcohol. You don't have to take all of those, but you can if you want, So let's say a person's done that, what you would do at this 4th stage is you'd reiterate that commitment. I will never kill. I will never lie. I will never steal, etc. So what we tend to think is, how can I say that? I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But what's so interesting about this point, and this again really brings us home the idea of the power of one's mind, how the mind is central to everything, and how your intention drives you. That the determination not to kill and your reiteration of that determination every day, guess what that causes? You not to kill. It even protects you from having to kill. And it's like any vow you take, any commitment. You know very well, you for years you might say, I should go on a diet, I've got to lose weight. But it's only when you make a really strong commitment to do it, that's when you'll do it, isn't it? We all know. It's the power of a commitment. When your mind finally decides, you have this strong intention, I will do it, then you will do it. So obviously if every day you reiterate this commitment you've taken that you will never kill, then it keeps getting stronger. It's not just some empty thought that has no bearing on anything. Every day you say that vow, it's like doing push-ups every day. You keep getting better at it. You constantly deepen the groove in your mind called non-killing. So eventually you don't even have to choose not to kill because you've trained your mind into the new habit. Just like you do when you practice piano every day. It becomes spontaneous. This is how you change. This is the most direct one. Backed up, though, by having first to own it, regretting it, refuge and the compassion, and then the practice, and then the determination. Now, as Lama Zopa says, you don't lie to yourself and say, I'll never get angry again. Be realistic, please. And this 4th step, we don't like to think this way because we don't have confidence in ourselves. First of all, if we don't even regret the actions we do, then we're not going to bother to try and change because we don't think we should anyway. It's not my fault, is it? And then if we have guilt, we don't think we can change. What's the point, we'll say? I'm just stuck in this. I'm a bad person. So having regret is a really crucial stepping stone to this one where you have the confidence to know that you can change. Okay, slowly. Some habits are unbelievably ingrained, as we can see. And what we're going to do every day is keep, in one's life, is uncover ever more subtle levels of these habits. They go profoundly deep into our mind, So you have a confidence that you can change, but you also develop a real kind of patience with yourself. Right now when we have guilt, we go, I must stop doing this, it's just too terrible, I have to stop, and then we get completely miserable when we can't stop, and then we give up, I'm hopeless, it's no good, I keep doing the same old bad thing, I should have changed by now. We want to kill ourselves. But we've got to have a real kind of humility with ourselves, knowing that they're very ancient habits, and it's going to be, you've got to think long term. But every day, chipping away. This is how we produce the new person. Our own self, So you've got to have humility and patience with yourself because it doesn't change overnight. But the determination to do so So even you might say, if you've taken the vows, or let's say as a nun, I've got a vow not to kill, not to lie, and a few others, every day one would reiterate that. Of course, one would. So it protects you from ever having to kill. I think as a Buddhist, since I've been a Buddhist, I've never had to consciously kill anything. Because it's in the front of your mind. You remember your commitment. And then you have, but you can make commitments like, say, with your anger. Let's say your anger. Let's say you shoot your mouth off really easily. So what you might do when you do the practice before you go to bed, you might say, I won't speak angry words for 8 hours. Well, you won't. You'll be fast asleep. And you'll keep your vow. Fantastic. You might go for 1 month. You might say for 5 minutes, even with confidence, to say, I will not get jealous for 5 minutes. It's very powerful, believe me, because what you're doing is cultivating this confidence in yourself that you can change, that it is up to you. And this is what we don't have now. The irony of ego is we hate ourselves. We feel hopeless and guilty and ashamed and useless, and I'm bad. It's so destructive, I tell you. It is so naughty. My mother used to say it, and she's right. You are your own worst enemy, she would say to me. It's true. We are our own worst enemy. So that's the purification practice. So just for clarity's sake, not too many questions, please. I want to go to bed with a nice, quiet mind. It's only 8:40. We could do a bit more. So any questions about those specific points, please? If not, keep your questions till tomorrow. Wait for the mic, sweetheart, because it's good for the recording, yeah? So you live on a farm where you do kill animals, you mean?
Yeah, well, we send them off for slaughter.
Okay, right.
So me generating bad karma about that,
Well, okay, that's up to you. What do you think about what you've heard so far? How are you processing this? Because it's quite an intense point for you, given that your livelihood is related to the killing of animals. So what do you think of this?
Well, it was just annoying me there because I was walking around.
You're just working with it. I think that's all you can do. It's like him with his farming, doing his whatever he's doing. You've got to think about it. That's all you can do. You're here for some reason, and I'm not going to tell you what to do. You've got to think about this stuff, and that's up to you to make your choices. And I mean, if at some point you make the choice, it's quite a big choice you have to make, because it's stopping your livelihood. But that's for you to think about.
Yeah, but the animals are well cared for and stuff like that.
I understand that.
And
I know. I understand.
You're talking about negative thinking,
No, I understand. Sure.
But
So
if you put,
all you can do is listen to what I'm telling you. I can't tell you how to think. So you can tell us if you like. What do you think of it so far? What's your view? Why don't you want to say something about what you've heard so far about the whole idea of killing? What do you think? What, darling? Speak closer.
Well, when we send the animals off for slaughter, it's not a happy day. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's interesting, isn't it? You feel that even yourself. You feel like you don't like it.
Yeah, but as I said, the animals are well cared for.
I understand
well
that.
looked after and stuff.
No, I know.
But then
that's why they're alive, though. It's like keeping me nicely alive, and then, Robina, now I'm going to send you off for slaughter because you're nice and fat and healthy, so I'll get a good price for you. Thank you. I'm not sure I'd like that.
Oh, no, there's that way of looking at it too, but...
Huh?
There's that way of looking at it too, but...
Darling, I can't understand your wonderful Irish accent. Speak to me. Say that again.
What I'm trying to say is, if I have a load of bad karma laying here...
What, darling?
If I have a load of bad karma...
Who? What?
From killing animals.
Okay, sweetheart, you've heard what everybody else has heard in the room so far. What do you make of what you've heard so far? You have to answer your own question here. Tell me. What have you heard of? What do you make of it so far? I mean, you're killing animals.
I'm trying to.
You're processing it.
Yeah, I'm finding it a bit hard to swallow.
Honey, leave it like that. Process it. Relax.
Okay.
Because it would be not beneficial for you to regret killing and then you keep killing. That's foolish.
Well, that's the meanness of it.
That's right. So you've got to let it be. Open yourself to what you're listening to here. Think about it. See if it makes sense. And then slowly, you'll make some choices in your life. Whatever you'll do, that's your call.
But when you're talking about your bad karma, that's negative thinking. So I have a load of this bad karma.
Darling, I'm so sorry. It's my ridiculous Australian ears. I want to hear you properly. Can you speak a wee bit slower?
Okay. Well, I've generated a lot of bad karma. Okay?
Who has? Who?
Say me.
Let's say you have. Okay, let's say.
From killing animals or
That's
helping.
right. Let's say, yes.
You know, not physically killing them, but helping
Having
to
them
generate
killed.
them.
It's actually, that's worse because you got someone else to do it for you.
Well, yeah.
But never mind.
Okay. But if I've a load of bad karma sitting here, I'm going to start worrying about it, and then that's negative thinking. So really and truly, I'm better off.
Well then, okay, if we change the analogy and you've just discovered that the food you've been eating has actually been poisoning you, which is the analogy we're using here, well then you might just sit there and feel miserable about it, but what good is that to you? It's not helpful. You've got to think about it and be responsible. This is your life. For whatever reason, you're born in a country, in a farm that kills animals. Due to some karma you created, that's your story. For some reason, you're in a Buddhist course hearing about this stuff. This is, you've created both of these. So there's this bit of a contradiction going on here. Well, honey, this is your life. You can handle it. Think about this stuff and just see where it goes with you.
Okay,
Don't just sit there
I'll
feeling,
think about it, but it was just annoying me a wee bit there. You know?
No, don't just think about it and feel guilty. That's called guilt. That's not helpful.
Right.
Think about it. And if you don't want to think about it yet and can't imagine yourself not killing the animals yet, because maybe it feels a bit too much, just relax and listen and try and listen to this stuff and be intelligent about it and see if it makes sense to you and see if it's a view that you want to adopt, because that might be your choice eventually. Lots of people give up killing animals if they choose to. You might not. It's your call. So take it as an intelligent person. Don't just sit there feeling miserable. That's not helpful.
No, well, I wasn't miserable. I'd be a sort of happy person. But now when I'm learning about this here,
what,
I'm
darling?
Going, what the hell am I doing here? Shouldn't have come here at all.
That's a good question. You should ask. That's right.
You know?
You'll make, maybe you'll walk out one day. Maybe it's not for you, but you're going to find that out, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll find
What's
that
your
out.
name?
Yeah. Neil's my name.
Who?
Neil.
Neil. Okay, honey.
Neil.
One step at a time, Neil.
Okay, thank you.
For some reason, you're here listening to this crazy Buddhist stuff about killing anything.
Yeah,
and it's very interesting. Okay? So see where it takes you, Neil.
Thank you.
Go. There. Okay. Hang on.
Are we going to do the match with you, like for the purification? Are we going to do them?
Yeah, maybe we'll do, we've got time, we could do a bit tonight. We'll go through the process quickly tonight before we finish.
And just last question, there are like Tibetan monks that do eat meat.
Yes.
Better.
Quite a few Buddhists eat meat, yes.
How about that?
How about it? What's your question?
I mean, they are Buddhists and they do eat meat.
What, darling?
They are Buddhists.
Yes.
And they do eat meat.
That's right. So then what is your question, please?
My question is like not to kill animals.
That's right.
Does it go with to be vegetarian as well? Or
well, like we said before, we were discussing it over here in depth, remember earlier today, that even you do, every individual person has got a different scenario for their life. Some people maybe have, no karma with killing any living beings, but they might eat meat sometimes. So another person, like Neil here, his business is to kill animals. And maybe he's even a vegetarian. I know a guy who was in Australia, he was, what are those little tiny fish? The little ones in shells, another lot in shells. He was a fisherman, and he kills millions of these every year, but he's a vegetarian, Oh, I don't like to kill, he said. I didn't say anything to him, He said, oh, I don't kill them. But he didn't seem, that his mind dealt with it that way. Okay, whatever, So there's many different scenarios. Somebody might never kill and has a vow never to kill and tries never to kill every single day, but maybe they have meat sometimes. And then there's another person who is a vegetarian, but he kills millions of fish. So, there's different kinds of people, and each person has to take responsibility for their own actions. And, that's it. What else can you say? It doesn't follow necessarily that because you don't kill, it doesn't mean you might need a plate of meat sometimes. Because remember, all the creatures, even if you are a vegetarian, millions of creatures die every day in the farming of the vegetables, in the picking of the vegetables, in the driving of the vegetables. And that's all part of what you're doing too. So we can't, and like I said today, we can't avoid harming sentient beings. Even just by breathing, we harm sentient beings. So we make our choices according to what we can. There's more than just eat meat, not eat meat. I'm not defending anything, Do you understand what I'm saying? More and more, the Tibetans in their culture, because of the way their culture was, they wouldn't kill anything. But a few yaks got killed. I don't know who did the killing. And then it was a tradition they'd eat meat. But now in this country, in India, what country are we in? India, that's right, we're in India. In India, where the Dalai Lama now talks to them all, and many of them are becoming vegetarian because they kill animals, especially for them. And it's really terrible to do that. So more and more of the Tibetans are now becoming vegetarian because their conditions have changed, you know. So it's so many variations for individual people at different times, different things. It's not a rigid law, you know, but one has to be very responsible oneself for what we do. Do you understand? Yeah. The microphone, please. So one more question, then we can do the practice, just briefly. Go through it very relaxed. You two? Okay, darling. Two more. What's your name? What, darling? Johannes. Okay. Okay.
Hi. My question is about two of the things that we went through. For like the things that we resolved not to do, include not killing and not lying.
If you take this set of vows, yes. For example.
And in general, it
sounds
sounds like a good
yes.
idea.
Okay.
I'm confused by a couple of examples that you gave earlier today. One was about a monk who killed someone who was going to kill many people.
Well, this is a story of the past life of the Buddha, when he was a highly realized bodhisattva who had clairvoyance and compassion and wisdom, was really high up on the ladder, you know, and he made this decision to kill a person whom he could see was going to kill many people. Yeah.
I can't understand that.
Which aspect of it can't you understand?
Because it seems to me that he shouldn't kill no matter what.
Okay, so what about the example of... What about the example of him and the ant? What do you think of that one? Remember today the story of Kieran and the ant? Remember that story? We talked about it today, about killing ant.
Yeah.
Do you remember how I discussed how your motivation for doing something is the main determining...
But then it makes it so subjective. Like, I might think that killing this person is a good idea because I think that's a very bad person and he'll definitely kill someone else.
But so for who's... So okay, let's analyze it carefully then. Okay, so you have an intention to kill this person because you think he's a bad person, right? But your motivation is what? What's your motivation?
To save all the people that this person would kill.
Okay, honey, that's not compassion. That's the usual reason everybody kills now. George Bush drops bomb on those people because they harm his people. Osama bin Laden drops bombs on those people because they harm his people. That's not compassion, honey. That's attachment.
So how is your example different?
Okay. Do you remember the story that I told?
I remember that
What was his motivation for killing this guy?
To save the potential killer from being reborn
with enormous suffering.
Lower.
So that is compassion, and that compassion is for the person you're doing the action to. Can you not see how that could be a wise action? Like a mother, I know some mothers who sent their children to prison because they were so desperate because the kids were like junkies or something. It was heartbreaking for them. It looked like a bad action, but the motivation was for the sake of the child. You don't think that's possible?
It still seems really dangerous
Can you stop?
to me.
Can you think that's possible?
I definitely think that's
possible to do
and
something.
I think
No,
many
listen,
people
please.
do that.
Sweetheart, listen. Do you think it's possible in ordinary daily life to do an action that looks like tough, but for the sake of that person? Do you think that's possible?
Yes, for example, Andrea Yates drowned 5 of her children.
What, darling?
Andrea Yates, a very famous... it's a woman in America who drowned 5 of her children because she wanted to save them.
From what?
From sinning and being reborn.
Well, I'd call that delusion. I would just give my opinion. That's delusional, not virtue.
Right, but it just seems so dangerous because then
okay, listen, darling.
Is judging.
Obviously, you have to have the wisdom to make the right choice. We're only talking about a wise action. We're not talking about delusional people. Hitler thought he was doing a good job too. Just because you think it's wise doesn't mean it is wise. We're talking about an actually wise decision, an actually compassionate. Like I said about him, if he pretends he's being compassionate for the ant, then he's lying to himself and karma takes care. The action is what his mind is doing. But he can be genuinely... Do you agree that some people can be genuinely compassionate who might kill a cat or kill their auntie or something? Do you think it's possible to be genuinely compassionate?
Yeah,
they might be foolish even, but do you think it's possible to have genuine compassion?
Yes.
Okay, well then, what's your problem?
It still seems dangerous to me.
Excuse me, everything is dangerous if you don't do it properly. Having a gun is dangerous if you don't know how to use it. It goes without saying that we're talking of examples of when it is done properly. Of course, if you're delusional, then it's not the discussion here. We're talking about doing it properly.
right? I guess it's just such a subjective thing. How it's
Just a moment.
properly-
Oh, sweetheart, please listen. What? What are you talking about subjective?
Well, there's somebody who.
Okay, do you think, I have to repeat my question to you. Do you think it's possible to have the wisdom to make a choice out of genuine compassion to do something tough to a person for their sake? Sweetheart, listen.
I think killing. No, I do not agree because I don't think.
Okay, so
a
you don't think
wise
it's possible.
person
So you don't
would ever
accept that it's
choose
possible to
kill.
have clairvoyance. You don't accept that it's possible to have this level of compassion that is completely beyond, and you might have, because you've not heard about it before, I accept.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
don't
telling
think I
you,
can
there
accept
is a
the
level of
killing.
compassion that they say that is completely beyond ego. Ego is finished a long time ago. All attachment, all ego grasping, all jealousy, all pride, gone, gone, gone way beyond. That the level of compassion is absolutely stupendous. That this person only exists for the sake of another. This is what Buddha talks about. This is the level to which we can develop our minds. So,
I don't
please,
think
can
that
you have to
person would
listen.
kill.
You have to stop. I'm being bossy here, but I have to give you this food for you to think about. So this is either true or it's not. Wouldn't you agree? Buddha is either correct in saying this level of wisdom and compassion is possible, or he's incorrect. Wouldn't you agree there's only two options?
So
You have to follow
either
my
it's
thinking.
Possible or
I'm telling you, this is what, from the day I've started, since last night, this is what we've been inferring. That Buddha says we can rid our minds completely of all ego and can develop absolutely, fully, all wisdom, all love, all compassionate. This is what he is saying is possible. This is the point of all this course. This is what is meant by nirvana. Now, are you prepared to accept that that could be possible?
I think it could be possible.
Good start. So the person we're talking about who killed the captain is one of those. So you have to at least accept the possibility that there could be such a person who would have such level of wisdom and such level of compassion. Leave it. No, don't close your mind for your sake. I don't care what you think. For me, I'm content. You, for your sake, have to keep your mind open if you're going to stay in this course, because you will go crazy if you can't. Because you just said it's possible. You just said it's possible. So you have to leave your mind alone. Let it be there and think, well, maybe it's possible. Take it as a hypothesis.
Okay.
How about that?
And another example
Very
you made
good.
was about
Well done.
the second example you gave that was also relative morality was about lying and a white lie being okay. So a person in a forest says, no, this person ran to the left,
And
not
what
to the
would be the
right,
motivation for that lie?
to save the person.
Right, and why is that a negative action?
Because maybe it feels to me that lying still in that situation is a wrong action.
Why is it
by
bad?
Morality. Because the honest thing to say, the truth is, I will not tell you because I do not want you to harm this person.
I see. So you think that seems like just plain
Yeah,
dumb
I
to
don't
me.
feel that
That
it's
seems like
justified.
fundamentalist to me. So what you're saying is, okay, what you're saying is that there is an inherently negative thing and that nothing can ever change it. That's an interesting view. That's a very interesting view.
I think in terms of morality, if we start thinking that white lies are okay.
No, listen, darling. No.
and
You are constantly assuming that we're talking about ordinary people who cheat and lie to themselves every day. Baby, join the club. This is exactly what we all do. But this is obviously not what is being recommended. Obviously. So, sweetheart, if you are not ready to compassionately kill an ant, then please don't do it. If you're not, and I would suggest, anyway, we haven't discussed that actually his action wasn't wise. But all I was trying to do there was show that it is possible, even in ordinary people, to have a pure motivation to do something that looks like it's negative. And that's what you just suggested. You are prepared to think that could be possible. So keep your mind open to that. Yes, we are all liars and cheats and we believe our own propaganda. That's how we live our ordinary life every day, right now. That's called samsara. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about lifting ourselves above that. Are we communicating here?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very good. So what? Yeah? Okay then. You people love questions. You two, you, and that's it. Get the mic, please. Give them over here. Then we do the practice. 5 to 9. We're doing okay.
Where?
Huh? Here and here. That's it. Yes. Yes.
Thank
sweetheart.
you. I'm sorry to rub it in, but I just also have to really.
How interesting. Rub it in. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to rub in?
I have to object to the story as well. Because even if I thought that something like mind reading was even possible,
Yeah, right.
then I think the action was wrong because he didn't give the bad man with all the bad intentions the freedom of the choice. He didn't give him the possibility to choose otherwise. And therefore it was not a wise or a compassionate action
Okay.
as far as I'm concerned.
That's good. Fine. I'm just telling you the story. It's right there, and it's for you to think about it. Good. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Buddha thanks you for your opinion. Nothing wrong. Next file. This guy here. No, I'm not being rude. Fantastic. But, you know, there's no harm in continuing to think about it.
I have a question to
Yeah.
the second and third stage of the purification.
Yes, good.
The image of the Buddha comes out of the same mind as all the mind, which is not which is everywhere. And I
Would
said
you say that again, sweetheart?
we said the doesn't have a structure. It doesn't have body.
Our mind is not physical.
Mind is not
That's
physical.
right, yes.
So the Buddha doesn't also comes out of the non-physical world.
No, you can be a Buddha in a human body, no problem. Your mind is not physical. Bodies are physical. Buddhas can have bodies, no problem. That's okay, it's okay, but fine. Buddhas can have bodies.
Buddhas can have bodies, but
Yeah, sure. You can. Once you're a Buddha, honey, once you are a Buddha, you are fully enlightened. You're going to be manifesting, bopping around the world in as many bodies as you like to benefit others. That's what you do.
okay.
Yeah.
And
So
in
then-
the third stage,
So when we visualize above our heads the Buddha, yeah.
yeah,
Then, what's the question?
the question is, when everything is filled up and all my pain and bad stuff is washed out, where does it goes?
Where goes what go?
Yeah, my bad stuff.
Okay, that's a very good question. Let me tell you the answer, okay? Let me tell you the answer. It's very simple. All this negative karma we've created, all these imprints, all these habits, they are mental, basically. They're habits in the mind, okay? So, and they are misconceptions. So when you do the opposite to killing, when you regret killing, and then you do the opposite to try and purify it, you're developing a new habit, aren't you? You're developing a new habit, which is to help others, aren't you? And you're refraining from killing, aren't you? Well, then that habit is going to get weaker, isn't it? And weaker, until eventually what happens? It's gone, finished. It's just disappeared. It's not concrete, it's simply a habit. Let's say you can't play piano. Well, you could say that your habit is to not play piano. That's the habit you've practiced. But then you start to play piano. As you keep getting better at piano, what happens to the habit to not play piano? It disappears. It's gone. It's real simple. It's really simple. That's why purification is a very nice idea. It's not a concrete thing. Do you see my point? It's very simple. This is why we can be very confident. We can change anything in our mind. But we think it's some big ugly part of me that, I'm still bad, you know. Not true. It's just a habit. You can weaken habits until eventually the habit has finished. Gone into space. Nothing left. Makes sense, right? Okay. Another question. Relating to purification? Relating to purification? Okay, darling. Good. Go on.
So the example about compassion killing the ant because the ant was. How about euthanasia?
Okay. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Euthanasia. We'll talk about. There's a very particular reason I was using this example, just to show how the mind plays the role in the karma we create. And so by the way we see something and how we... but I think I'll do that tomorrow. Please, can we leave that? We'll go into that more depth tomorrow. We'll do the little purification practice now. So we just do it really... Just be very relaxed. Just close your eyes because you're going to do this. I'll say a few words, but basically you will be talking to yourself. You will be doing these steps to the extent that you want to do them in the way that you want to do them. Okay? I'll just guide the way. Keep it simple. So, okay, so this first step is this one of regret. So, think like today and this life, just yourself, think of any actions you've done, the ones you can think of in particular, whether they're killing, if you want to regret it, harming others, harming others with your body and your speech. Even just think of 1 or 2 or 3 things that you can think of in particular, or stuff that's maybe a bit your habit, your body and your speech. And then, so think of those things. Just call them up in your mind. And I think especially in our close relationships, it's the husbands and the boyfriends and the sisters and the mothers. They're the way where we have the intense stuff, all the things we do that we so often do regret, with our speech especially, And that means like lying or angry words or this kind of thing. So now think, I regret these. I regret having done these because they have sown these seeds in my mind. They're increasing my habit to do this. And I don't want this. I'm sick of this suffering. I don't want this kind of consequence to come to myself. And I don't want to keep doing these things. I am fed up with suffering. So I regret them from the depths of my heart. For my sake. I'm sick of suffering. So think of stuff in this life, Maybe you had an abortion one time. Maybe it makes sense to you. Maybe, like you've killed if it makes sense to you to think of regretting it. If not, like in Neil's case, he's thinking about it. So he doesn't regret it, he thinks about it. But if you have and it makes sense to you, the creatures you've killed, the fishing you've done, or the cockroaches, the ants, if this makes sense to you, think, I deeply regret this. I don't want to grow the tendency to kill. I don't want to be killed in the future, if this is the consequence of these habits. So I deeply regret this for my own sake. And then if it makes sense to us, think, okay, whatever I must have done in the past, if you can even contemplate the idea of past lives, if it makes sense to you, think, whatever I must have done in the past, countless lives, to harm countless sentient beings. I regret every single one of these because I do not want these seeds to ripen as my future suffering. That's for sure. So then, think of all the thoughts, the emotions, the anger, the hurt, the jealousy, the depression, the low self-esteem, this stuff that just pollutes our mind every day that we can never seem to get rid of. Look at the suffering it causes us. It's so clear, Like, so fed up with this. I am sick of all this rubbish. I am fed up with all this nonsense in my own mind. I regret it from the depths of my heart. I don't want to keep doing these ridiculous things. Look at the pain it's causing me. I regret it for my sake. So whom can I turn to? Where's the doctor? To give me the medicine that I can take to purify my mind. So here we're using the idea of the Buddha. Now if this makes sense to you, then cool. If not, you put who you like there. Put nobody there. Put God there. I don't mind what you do. It's up to you where you're at. But if you can just imagine this enlightened mind manifesting in this form, you just sort of visualize. We'll discuss this more in detail later. Above your head, white light body, radiant, sitting cross-legged on a lotus. And in his left hand he's holding a bell, which represents wisdom. And his right hand holding this thing they call a vajra. Maybe you've seen, maybe you've not, doesn't matter. It represents compassion, the 2 wings, and they're crossed at his heart, which represents the unification of wisdom and compassion, the 2 wings of the bird, fully developed. So just imagine like radiant light body facing the same way as you. Very radiant. Everything's made of light. Sitting on a lotus, holding this bell and dorji, this vajra. So if you are already a Buddhist and you have a teacher, let's say, or a Lama, you visualize, you imagine their mind as oneness with the mind of your teacher, your Lama, your spiritual teacher. Manifesting in this aspect for your benefit. So just imagine being delighted to have the Buddha to take refuge in, to rely upon, whose methods one is attempting to try as medicine, if you like, thinking like this, you know. So the second step of this one, reliance, is where we have compassion now for those we have harmed, and if we can, for those who have harmed us. So we can think a couple, one or two people, particular in our life, that we feel the harm we've done to them, we deeply regret it for their sake. We know the harm it has caused them. We empathize with their suffering. So I must purify myself for their sake. And if you can think of those who've harmed you, that's fantastic. Absolutely. They're going to suffer because of the actions they have done. For this reason, I empathize with their suffering. And the reason they've harmed me is anyway because I've harmed them. So to break the cycle, to have compassion for them is incredible. So even for their sake, I must also purify myself. So I can only benefit others from now on. So now the third step, we do this little visualization, okay? So just imagine from the heart of Vajrasattva above our heads, just imagine this he sends very compassionately, he sends this very powerful, like it arcs around in an arc, in a sort of circle, this very powerful like nectar, like a hose, very strong, very focused, that arcs around and enters into your crown, into your head, and then completely fills you. Just imagine this. Think it, Use your creative imagination. Filling you completely. And what it does, this nectar, this very powerful, like blissful liquid, it forces out through the lower parts of your body all the harm, all the imprints of all the harm you've ever done with your body, with your bodies in countless times, Totally forces it out like filthy liquid, like inky, filthy liquid, out through the lower parts of your body, and it just disappears into space. Imagine this. Kind of want this. Be delighted to think this. This nectar pouring into you. Then as you visualize this, we'll say, anyone who knows it can join in, this mantra, it's Sanskrit. It's a particular mantra, it's long, it's 100 syllables. I'll just speak it out, recite it 3 times. So just visualizing this visualization as we say this mantra. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayata Sawa Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayata Sawa Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayata Sawa Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe. So imagine now you're totally full of this radiant nectar, all the imprints of all the harm you've done with your bodies to all sentient beings since beginningless time, completely gone. All these habits finished. Just imagine this. Be delighted to even think this. Wish this. So now the second time, Lama Vajrasattva very compassionately sends this hose of nectar from his heart that arcs around, enters your crown, and this time fills you up, but forces up to the top all the imprints of all the harm you've ever done with your speech, all the bad-mouthing, all the harsh speech, the lying, the talking about people behind their backs, creating disharmony. We do so much of this with our speech, criticizing people. All of this harm we've done with our speech, completely coming to the top. And just like as Lama Yeshe says, when you turn on a tap in the sink, all the junk in the glass comes to the surface. Just like that. All the junk comes to the surface and then leaves through the top part of your body, like filthy, inky liquid. Thinking like this. All the imprints of all the harm you've ever done with your speech. And this nectar continuously coming, forcing up all the time, this filthy liquid, the imprints of the speech. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anuraktu Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawa Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawa Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawa Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe. So now imagine again, full of this radiant nectar, so delighted, not one atom of any of the negative imprints of all the harmful speech that you've ever done. Completely gone. Not one atom left. Full of this radiant nectar. How marvelous. And that means imagining you're full of the habit to only say positive things, which is one's potential. But these negative habits are just habits. There's nothing concrete about them. Now, third time, we visualize, we imagine from Lama Vajrasattva's heart, he very happily sends beams of light, like laser beams, so powerful. But again, they arc around and enter our crown. And the second this light enters us, we imagine, just like, as Lama Yeshe says, when you turn a light on in the room, all the darkness is instantly dispelled. So we imagine this light filling us instantly and immediately eradicating all the imprints of all the delusions. The ego grasping that believes in the inherent me, that then brings attachment and anger and fear and pride and jealousy and depression and low self-esteem and all the rest. All this stuff that gives us so much pain and is the basis of why we harm others. All of this instantly gone, full of this radiant, blissful light, filling us completely. How marvelous. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakta Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawa Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakta Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawa Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakta Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawa Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe. Full of this light, all the delusions gone, which is my potential. That's what Buddha's saying, This is the potential every one of us has innately, because these delusions are just habits. And we can see logically how we can change habits until eventually the negative ones have gone. Nothing mysterious. It's just a question of time. Should give us such confidence. So now the fourth step, the determination to change. The most important, in a way, you know. So if those of us maybe who've taken vows, let's say not kill, not lie, not steal, whatever those vows, if we have, if not, that's fine. But if it makes sense to you to even say, ready to go, I will never kill again, I will never lie again. But if not that, you say, okay, maybe I'll try it for a month. Maybe I'll try it while I'm at the course, you know. I won't kill for 1 month. Consciously see, when I see a sentient being, I won't harm it. I won't kill it. I mean, you can't say you won't kill without intending, because you know you're killing all the time. We can't help it with our breath, with our walking. But intentionally is the point. So if you can say, give yourself a timeline, or if you can reiterate your vow, I will never kill, that's up to you. So these main actions of the most harmful to sentient beings, if we can do this, you know, if we can see that it makes sense. You make a commitment to yourself for how long you think you might want to do this. For any one of your habits, yourself. The main ones with your body and speech. And we'll do the mind in a minute. Just think of the body and speech. You make a decision yourself, make a commitment yourself. And you're making it to yourself. 1 day, 1 month, 5 minutes, whatever you like to say, that you feel you can keep. I mean, I think of your mind, all those old rubbish habits, you know, the jealousy, the depression, the stuff that feels so innate, as if there's no way I could never be these things. Not true. So maybe just, you know, make a decision. Even if you say, I will do my best to not be jealous, to not get angry, to not be neurotic, to not be depressed, for a few minutes every day. Something, some commitment that can kind of give you the courage to know that your intention to do this is the main cause of your success. You're the boss. Just think to yourself, any commitments you like. Okay, so now we imagine, now this the Buddha, this light body, he just dissolves into white light. You visualize this. The energy of enlightened mind. And he dissolves into white light and he enters through your crown and absorbs into you. And you just think, you know, my mind, Buddha's mind, same thing. Okay, so then we just end, you know, based upon the view of karma, that every second, every thought you have sows a seed. Well, then it seems to me this little process we've just done, how marvelous, you know. Looking into our minds, taking responsibility, regretting, having compassion, imagining, purifying, and making determination to change. My goodness, how fantastic. All these seeds gone in. So we just end the day with thinking the whole day, in fact, from the time we woke up this morning, you know, it's been pretty intense, listening to all this stuff, all these ideas, processing, discussing, thinking about them. Fantastic. Kind of, we've done a huge amount of gardening all day. So many seeds have we planted. How fantastic. So we just dedicate. We're thinking, may we nourish these seeds from this moment forward so that they do grow into my own marvelous potential for goodness, for clarity, all these things, for my sake and the sake of suffering sentient beings. Kewadinyo dudag lama sangye drugyone drowa chikyang malupa Dei sala gopasho Jang chob sem chog rinpoche ma ke panam ke gyuchig ke panyam pa me payang gong ne gong du pelvasho. Okay, so we go into retreat mode now, which means basically you imagine you're here on your own. You mind your own business. It's the best way. Do whatever you think you need to do. Process this stuff, take notes, write in your journal, read a book, look at the sky, go to sleep, whatever. But then remember your homework before you go to sleep. Did anybody see their dreams as dreams? May I ask? That's cool, whatever. But try and do that one again. It's really nice. Did you remember doing it even, to go to sleep, thinking that thought? Silence, okay. It's still your homework. Before you close your eyes, you think, may I see my dreams as dreams? Okay. And it's also good to know what your dreams are when you wake up in the morning, to see them. It's good. Learn from them. It's just your mind, processing stuff. And then the other one, again, maybe we'll talk about impermanence tomorrow, death and impermanence. When you wake up, if you wake up, think. Consciously be aware, wow, I'm still awake. How amazing. I'm not dead yet, May I make the most of this life? Come to the teachings, come to the meditation, learn about my mind, blah, 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 Make the most of the day. Thank you very much, everybody.